Most men believe they're in control of their choices, their reactions, their ambitions. They wake up every morning thinking they're the strategist. But what if you're not? What if you're being controlled by a pattern you can't even see? Right now, as you watch this, one of three dark forces is driving your behavior, shaping your decisions, controlling what you think is your free will, and you've been blind to it your entire life. There are three personality patterns that rule men without them knowing. Three shadows that can turn grown men into puppets or kings. Narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy. You've heard these words before, but you don't understand what they actually are. This isn't a psychology lesson. This isn't therapy. This is about power and slavery. Because right now, you're one of two men, the man who controls the pattern, or the man controlled by it. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something most men never will. He saw that men believe they act from strength when they're actually acting from addiction, from fear, from emptiness. They think they're making strategic decisions, but they're just responding to invisible strings. The narcissist thinks he's confident. He's not. He's starving for applause and will destroy himself the moment it stops. The Machiavellian thinks he's powerful. He's not. He's alone in a prison he built with his own paranoia. The psychopath thinks he's free. He's not. He's empty, chasing stimulation to fill a void that can never be filled. And here's the part that terrifies most men. You don't get to choose which one you are. Life already chose for you. Something happened. A wound. A betrayal. A moment when you realized the world doesn't care about fairness. And in that moment, you adapted. You became one of these three, not because you're evil, because you're human. The few men who understand this, who can look at themselves without flinching, become dangerous. They stop being controlled. They become sovereign. The rest? They stay enslaved, repeating the same cycles, blaming everyone else, wondering why life keeps punishing them when they're doing everything right. But here's what most men don't realize. These aren't just personality types. They're stages, a descent. You didn't start as the cold strategist. You didn't begin as the man who feels nothing. You became this. And if you're not careful, you'll descend even further. Most of you started in the same place, hungry for something simple, something every human wants, to be seen, to be valued, to matter. But when that need goes wrong, when it becomes an addiction, you become the first type, the applause addict, the narcissist. 1. The narcissist, the slave to applause. The narcissist doesn't love himself. He needs to be loved. He needs to be seen, applauded, validated. He walks into a room and immediately begins calculating, not power, not opportunity, but attention. Who's looking? Who's not? Who praised him? Who ignored him? And in this desperate theater of validation, he becomes a slave to perception. But he doesn't see it that way. He thinks he's just confident, charismatic, destined for something great. He'll even convince you he's self-assured. But in reality, he's terrified of one thing: being unseen. The narcissist builds his whole life around admiration, and yet he never feels admired enough. Because beneath all the performance is something rotting, fragile pride, one insult, and he spirals, one rejection, and he plots revenge. The narcissist is not strong, he is starving, and the more he feeds on praise, the more he needs it to survive. You'll see him in every room, loud, curated, slightly too polished. He smiles wide but scans constantly for signs of disrespect. If you praise him, he shines. If you ignore him, he withers. But if you challenge him, he breaks. You've just witnessed the mask slip. The narcissist doesn't have defenses. He has illusions. And when those illusions crack, he collapses into one of two extremes: rage or despair. Neither are controlled, neither are rational. He is an empire built on mirrors. And once the reflection no longer flatters him, he burns the whole room down trying to get it back. This is why many men fail in silence, not because they lacked skill, but because their egos were too fragile to withstand reality. One loss, and they disappear. One bruise, and they retreat into fantasy, because they were never warriors. They were children trapped in adult bodies, craving applause instead of conquest. But make no mistake, the narcissist can still rise. And often he does, because he knows how to wear the perfect face. He adapts to what you admire. He becomes what you want to praise. In politics, in entertainment, in leadership, narcissists often rise faster than everyone else. Why? Because they need to. While others debate, the narcissist seduces. While others hesitate, he poses. He becomes a mirror of the public desire, and the crowd hungry to worship gives him the crown. But this is the cruel paradox. What lifts him is also what dooms him, because the moment the admiration fades, he self-destructs. Think of the icons who fell apart once the spotlight dimmed, the leaders who couldn't handle criticism, the creators who vanished once they were no longer praised. It wasn't failure that broke them. It was their addiction to being seen as perfect. This is where it becomes dangerous, not just for them, but for everyone around them. Because when the narcissist starts to lose admiration, he doesn't go quietly. He manipulates, guilt trips, lies. He rewrites history. He demonizes those who stop feeding him praise. In relationships, he becomes controlling. In business, vindictive. He cannot let you move on because your attention is his oxygen. So he will shame you, charm you, or destroy you. Anything to remain center stage. And if he can't be worshipped as the hero, he'll play the victim. Or worse, the villain. Not out of strategy, out of desperation. This is not power. This is dependency disguised as dominance. And once you see it, you'll notice it everywhere. The loudest in the room, the most polished. The ones who always need to be special. They're not free. They're dying for applause. And here's the final cruelty. Most men who are ruled by this type never realize it until it's too late. They think they're chasing greatness when really they're just chasing compliments. They think they're leaders when really they're addicts for praise. And while they're building a false self for the world to admire, their real self is decaying, unnoticed, unloved, and eventually forgotten, because they spent their entire life trying to be someone else's ideal. Not once did they stop and ask, "Who am I when no one's watching?" This question haunts them, and if they ever slow down long enough to face it, it breaks them. Because the truth is, the narcissist doesn't want power. He wants to look powerful, and in the end, that illusion becomes his cage. But here's where it gets dangerous. Some narcissists learn to weaponize their charm. They evolve. They study attention like war. They seduce not just to be loved, but to control. And when that shift happens, the narcissist is no longer just fragile. He becomes calculated, strategic, a charming manipulator who wears vulnerability like armor. He's evolved past the clumsy hunger for praise. Now he's learned to control it, no longer a child begging for attention. He's a performer who understands the audience better than they understand themselves. He's refined, selective, weaponized. But make no mistake, the wound is still there. He doesn't seduce because he wants to connect. He seduces because it gives him leverage. Compliments are no longer food. They're currency. He trades them for loyalty, obedience, worship. And in this new form, the narcissist becomes dangerous, not just to himself, but to everyone who mistakes his mask for depth. Because once you believe in his illusion, he owns you. And when he owns you, he feeds. Not always publicly, not always obviously. But behind every soft smile and gentle voice, he's extracting something from you. Admiration, sympathy, envy, submission, all without lifting a single weapon. Because his real weapon is you, and yet you'll still miss him. That's the real cruelty. Even when you see him clearly, even when you understand the manipulation, even when you finally walk away, something in you will ache. Because the narcissist is an expert at imprinting himself onto your psyche. He'll be the first to say something no one else ever dared to say. He'll be the only one who noticed that one detail you always hid. He'll remember things no one else remembers, and he'll give you a taste of being completely seen before snatching it away. That is the drug, and once you've tasted it, everyone else feels dull. That's what he counts on, because even if you hate him, if you remember him, he still wins. But the greatest tragedy? The narcissist doesn't even know who he is. For all the masks he wears, for all the identities he crafts, for all the people he mirrors, the core is hollow. There is no stable self, just shifting images, trying to catch a glimpse of something real. He is both master and prisoner of the performance, and eventually, when the crowd is gone, the applause fades, and no one is watching. He's left with silence, and it terrifies him, because in that silence, there is no reflection. Just the haunting question: who am I if no one's looking? And he has no answer. So he starts performing again. Another audience, another stage, another mirror, always running from the stillness. That would force him to see the truth. And now you must ask yourself, does this type live in you? Are your goals truly your own? Or are they just bait for applause? Do you act for yourself? Or for the version of yourself you hope others admire? Do you crave growth? Or the appearance of growth? Because if you lie to yourself here, you'll never escape the narcissist's cage. You'll spend your life performing, pleasing, posing, and dying inside. But if you answer honestly, something rare happens. You stop acting, and you start becoming. But the path to that clarity is brutal, because once you destroy the illusion, another darker one waits underneath it. Most people never make it past the narcissist phase. Their entire lives are lost in the performance, addicted to admiration, enslaved by their own image. But a rare few evolve. They stop needing to be admired and start needing to win. These men are no longer chasing praise, they're chasing control. And in this cold evolution, the second type is born, the Machiavellian. 2. The Machiavellian, the cold calculator. He doesn't care if you love him, he doesn't care if you fear him, he only cares that you're positioned correctly. The Machiavellian walks into a room and sees something most people miss: the architecture of power. Who defers to whom, who interrupts whom, who's pretending to be confident, who's actually dangerous. He's not looking at faces, he's reading the board. And everyone in it is a piece. You think you're having a conversation with him, you're not. You're being cataloged. He asks questions that seem casual, personal even. What do you do? What brought you here? What are you working on? And you answer. Because it feels like interest. It's not. It's data collection. He's learning what you want, what you fear, what makes you useful. And 6 months from now, when he needs something, he'll remember. He'll call you. Frame it perfectly. Make it seem like you're doing him a favor, and you'll do it willingly, because he already knew which buttons to press. This is the difference between the narcissist and the Machiavellian. The narcissist needs you to worship him. The Machiavellian needs you to owe him. One plays for applause, the other plays for position. And position is permanent. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that a wise man should rely on what is in his control, not on what is in the control of others. The Machiavellian internalized this completely. He doesn't trust loyalty, he engineers dependence. He doesn't hope people will help him, he makes it beneficial for them to help him. He doesn't believe in friendship, he believes in aligned interests. And the moment your interests diverge from his, you become irrelevant, not an enemy, just nothing. You'll notice this about him. He never speaks first in meetings. He waits, listens, measures. He doesn't defend himself when accused. He lets others defend him. The Machiavellian doesn't strike in anger. He strikes in strategy, cold, surgical, untraceable. This is what makes him terrifying. He's not impulsive. He's patient. He'll wait 5 years to settle a score, a decade to outmaneuver a rival. Because he's not playing the game, you see. He's playing the game 3 moves ahead. While the narcissist is performing and the psychopath is destroying, the Machiavellian is building. Networks, leverage, invisible strings. He positions himself so carefully that by the time you realize he's powerful, it's too late to challenge him. He's already woven himself into the structure. Remove him, and things collapse. That's not an accident, that's design. But here's what nobody tells you about this type: the cost. He has colleagues, business partners, contacts, but no friends. Because friendship requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is weakness. He has relationships, but they're transactional. Every dinner is an investment. Every favor is a future asset. Every conversation is a negotiation. Nothing is given freely. Nothing is received without calculation. And, late at night, when the strategy is done and the room is empty, he feels it. The weight of knowing that nobody in his life is there because they want to be. They're there because it's advantageous. And he knows that. Because he designed it that way. This is the Machiavellian's cage. He's mastered control, but lost connection. He's won every game, but forgotten why he was playing. He sits at the top of the board and realizes he's completely alone. And the worst part? He can't go back. Because once you've seen people as chess pieces, you can't unsee it. Once you've trained yourself to calculate every interaction, spontaneity dies. Once you've removed emotion from decision-making, you can't just turn it back on. The skill that made him powerful is the same skill that made him isolated. He sees through everyone because he sees through himself. He knows that every smile he gives is calculated. Every compliment is leverage. Every act of generosity is investment. So when others smile at him, he assumes the same. When others compliment him, he searches for the angle. When others are generous, he waits for the bill. He can't accept kindness because he doesn't believe in it. He's optimized for survival in a world of threats, and now he can't see anything else. This is the addiction, not to validation like the narcissist, to control. Every time he successfully manipulates an outcome, there's a hit. A sense of power, superiority, safety. I'm untouchable. I saw through them. I won. But it's never enough. Eventually, some Machiavellians reach a point where they realize this. The game isn't fun anymore. The strategy feels meaningless. The control feels hollow. And in that moment of exhaustion, something shifts. They stop caring about the outcomes. They stop calculating the risks. And what emerges isn't the narcissist's performance or the Machiavellian's strategy. It's something rawer, colder, more primal. They stop asking, "What do I gain?" They start asking, "What do I feel?" And the answer is nothing. No guilt, no fear, no attachment, just cold impulse, pure will, unrestrained force. And that's when the third type is born, the psychopath. 3. The psychopath, the untethered. The psychopath doesn't plan, he acts. While the narcissist is performing and the Machiavellian is calculating, the psychopath is already moving, fast, final. Without hesitation. No internal debate, no moral consideration, no fear of consequences, just pure impulse meeting pure will. And that's what makes him the most dangerous, not because he's smarter, because he's unchained. Most people think psychopaths are serial killers hiding in basements. They're not. They're the surgeon who cuts without shaking, the lawyer who destroys a life before lunch and orders dessert, the CEO who fires 10,000 people and sleeps perfectly that night. They're not hiding in shadows. They're sitting in boardrooms, leading armies, running companies, making decisions, and they're thriving. Because while everyone else is paralyzed by empathy, guilt, or fear, the psychopath moves. He doesn't feel the weight that stops other men. There's no voice in his head asking, "Is this right?" There's no chest tightness when someone suffers. There's no sleepless night replaying what he did. He just doesn't care. Not in a cruel way, not in an angry way, in a blank way, like you watching rain, observing, neutral, unmoved. That's the secret. Fear requires imagination. Guilt requires memory. Shame requires self-reflection. The psychopath has severed all three. He doesn't imagine consequences, so he doesn't fear them. He doesn't replay his actions, so he doesn't regret them. He doesn't measure himself against moral standards, so he feels no shame. This makes him terrifyingly free. While others negotiate, he takes. While others hesitate, he strikes. While others worry about being liked, respected, or remembered, he simply does what serves him in the moment, and then moves on. No attachment to the outcome, no need for it to mean something. It just was, and now it's not. On to the next thing. Nietzsche warned about this. He said, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that, in the process, he does not become a monster." The psychopath isn't fighting monsters, he is the monster, and he stopped pretending otherwise. But here's what most people get wrong. They think psychopaths are raging, out-of-control beasts. They're not. Most psychopaths are calm, controlled, eerily still. They can sit across from you and mimic every emotion perfectly: concern, sadness, joy, love. They've studied what those look like. They know when to deploy them. But inside, nothing. It's theater. Masterful theater. They're not faking to manipulate, like the narcissist. They're faking to blend, to pass, to move undetected, because genuine emotion would slow them down. This is why they're so hard to spot. You'll work with them, date them, trust them, and never realize that when they looked you in the eye and said they cared, they were mimicking a script, not because they wanted to hurt you, because they needed you to stop asking questions. The psychopath isn't confused about what he is. He's known since childhood that he's different. He watched other kids cry over a dead pet and felt nothing. He heard about a tragedy and thought, "That's unfortunate," the way you'd think about a broken appliance. He realized early that other people have invisible chains, guilt, empathy, conscience, that he simply doesn't have. And at first he might have pretended to have them, learned to say the right things, make the right faces, but eventually he stopped pretending. Because why would he? Those chains don't protect you, they weaken you. They make you hesitate when you should act. They make you forgive when you should eliminate. They make you question yourself when you should dominate. The psychopath sees this clearly. Conscience is a cage, and he was born without it. And in certain environments, war, chaos, collapsing systems, this makes him unstoppable. He thrives where others break. He moves forward when others freeze. He does what needs to be done when everyone else is debating morality. That's why psychopaths often rise in crises, not because they're the best, because they're the only ones willing to act without hesitation. But here's the cost nobody talks about. The psychopath wins, but he wins alone. He conquers, but the victory is empty. He dominates. But there's no one left to celebrate with, because every relationship he's ever had was a transaction. Every connection was strategic. Every person was disposable. And now, standing at the peak, he looks around and sees nothing. No love, no loyalty, no one who stayed because they wanted to. Just empty space where connection should be. And he doesn't even mourn it, because mourning requires attachment. And attachment is weakness, so he just continues. Next conquest, next target, next stimulation, always moving, always hunting. Because stopping means facing the void, and the void is unbearable, not because it's painful, because it's nothing, just silence, flatness, the absence of meaning. The psychopath is chasing a feeling he's biologically incapable of experiencing, like being colorblind and spending your life searching for red. You'll never find it, because the hardware is missing, but you can't stop looking. Because if you stop, you have to accept that nothing will ever fill the emptiness, and that truth is the only thing that comes close to hurting. Here's what you need to understand. Most men aren't full psychopaths. That's rare, clinical, often genetic. But most men have fragments of it. The numbness after being hurt too many times, the coldness that creeps in when empathy becomes exhausting, the moments where you look at someone suffering and feel nothing. Just observation. Those fragments are dangerous, because once you taste what it's like to move without the weight of conscience, it's tempting to stay there. It feels like freedom. No guilt, no shame, no fear, just action and consequence, stripped of emotion. But it's not freedom, it's disconnection. And disconnection, taken far enough, leaves you powerful but hollow, capable of anything, fulfilled by nothing. The psychopath doesn't lose because he's weak. He loses because even when he wins, he feels nothing. The throne is his. The empire is built. The enemies are crushed. And he sits there alone, waiting to feel something that will never come. That's the final cost. Not destruction, not punishment, just emptiness. Infinite, unchanging emptiness. And most men who go down this path don't realize it until it's too late. By the time they notice the void, they've already burned every bridge that could have led them back. Now the question you have to ask yourself, which of these three has controlled you? Were you starving for applause, addicted to control, numb to everything? Most men are a mix: the narcissist in public, the Machiavellian at work, the psychopath when threatened, but one dominates, one drives, one decides, and if you don't know which one it is, it's already making choices for you. The only path forward is brutal honesty, not judgment, not shame. Just seeing clearly which pattern has been running your life. Because once you see it, you can master it, not eliminate it, master it. The narcissist who understands his need for validation can choose when to feed it and when to starve it. The Machiavellian who sees his addiction to control can choose which battles matter and which are just compulsion. The psychopath who recognizes his emptiness can channel it into purpose instead of destruction. That's the difference between being controlled by your darkness and controlling it. And that's where real power lives, not in denying the shadow, in directing it. It's not about eliminating this part of you. It's about mastering it, seeing it clearly, naming it, and directing it instead of being driven by it. The narcissist who understands his addiction to validation can choose which audiences matter and which to ignore. He can use his charm strategically instead of desperately. He can perform when it serves him and rest when it doesn't. The Machiavellian who sees his need for control can distinguish between legitimate threats and paranoid compulsion. He can build real alliances instead of just leverage. He can remember that not everything is a game, and some things are worth more than winning. The psychopath who recognizes his emptiness can channel it into purpose instead of chaos. He can act without hesitation when it matters, and pause when it doesn't. He can use his detachment as clarity instead of cruelty. This is the difference between being possessed by your shadow and possessing it. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That's the forbidden knowledge. Not that darkness exists, everyone knows that, but that you can master it. That awareness transforms the pattern from controller to tool. That the man who faces his shadow without flinching becomes more dangerous than the man who pretends he has none. Because denial keeps you enslaved. You think you're good, moral, above it all, while your unconscious patterns run your life. But acknowledgement makes you sovereign. You see exactly what drives you, and you decide when to feed it and when to starve it. That's real power, not performing goodness, not faking virtue, but having the capacity for darkness and choosing when to deploy it. Most men will never reach this level. They'll stay narcissists chasing validation until they die. They'll stay Machiavellians isolated in their own castles. They'll stay psychopaths numb to everything that matters because they're too afraid to look in the mirror and see what's actually there. But if you're still here, you're different. You didn't click away when you recognized yourself. You didn't close the video when it got uncomfortable. You stayed. And that means you're capable of something most men aren't. Brutal self-honesty. The willingness to see yourself clearly, not as you wish you were, but as you actually are. And that willingness is the beginning of mastery, because you can't control what you won't acknowledge. You can't master what you refuse to see. But once you see it clearly, once you name it, once you stop running from it, it stops controlling you. And you become something rare, a man who knows his darkness, who's made peace with it, who's learned to direct it instead of being driven by it. That man is unstoppable, not because he's good, because he's awake, not because he's moral, because he's sovereign, not because he's free from darkness, because he's mastered it. And the world belongs to men like that, the ones who stopped pretending, the ones who faced themselves, the ones who chose awareness over comfort. Now here's what I need you to do. Go to the comments right now and tell me, which of these dark personality types do you see in yourself? Not which one you want to be, not which one sounds best, which one actually controls you. Are you the narcissist, starving for validation, performing for applause? Are you the Machiavellian, calculating every move, isolated by your own strategy? Are you the psychopath, numb to everything? Or are you a mix, different patterns in different situations? Write it. Be honest. And if this video forced you to see something you've been avoiding, if it gave you language for patterns you've felt your whole life but never understood, then do this. Like the video. Subscribe to the channel. This channel isn't for men who want to be told they're good, it's for men who want to see clearly. Even when the truth is dark, especially when the truth is dark. Because the men who master their shadows are the ones who change the world, not the ones who pretend they don't have shadows. Welcome to the ones who see clearly.